On my graduation day, I looked around hoping to see my mother's smile in the crowd, but she was busy posting pictures with her stepdaughter, and in that moment I finally accepted the truth. His name was Jake. My husband's name is David. Was David. I don't even know anymore, it started so stupidly, so predictably. David had been working late again, third week in a row. The promotion he'd been chasing meant 12-hour days and weekend calls. I was alone with Emma, our 4-year-old, every single evening. Bath time, bedtime stories, the whole routine while he sent apologetic texts about being stuck in another meeting. I wasn't looking for anything. I swear I wasn't. Jake worked at the coffee shop near Emma's daycare. Tall, easy smile remembered my order. Large vanilla latte, extra, he'd say before I even opened my mouth. Made me feel seen in a way I'd forgotten existed. The first time he wrote his number on my cup, I ate away. Didn't even hesitate. The second time I stared at those 10 digits while Emma played in the back seat. Just stared. The third time I saved it in my phone. Seemed tired, he'd said that morning, those green eyes soft with concern. Everything okay? Everything wasn't okay. David had missed Emma's soccer game the day before, the only parent not there, and Emma kept scanning the sideline asking where Daddy was. I'd made excuses while my daughter's face fell, and something inside me cracked. Just the usual. I'd told Jake, but my voice broke on the last word. Hey. He'd leaned closer across the counter. Deserve better than just the usual. That should have been my first red flag. Instead, it felt like validation. The texting started innocent. How was day? How's Emma? David working late again? Jake listened. Actually listened. When I complained about feeling invisible in my own marriage, he didn't offer solutions or tell me David was probably just stressed. He just said, that sounds really lonely. Nobody had acknowledged my loneliness in months. The messages got longer. More personal. Jake told me about his dreams of opening his own cafe, about the poetry he wrote in his spare time. I told him about the photography career I'd abandoned when Emma was born, about feeling like I'd disappeared into being just David's wife, and Emma's mom, or still Sarah. He wrote one night at 11 p.m. while David snored beside me. Don't forget that. I screenshot that message, kept it in a hidden folder like some kind of lifeline. The emotional affair lasted 6 weeks before it became physical. 6 weeks of deleted texts and racing heartbeats when his name lit my screen. 6 weeks of feeling alive again while my actual crumbled around me. David noticed, of course, started asking why I was on my phone so much, why I seemed distracted during dinner. But he was exhausted from work, and I was good at making excuses. Just scrolling social media, I'd say, or Emma's mom group is planning a play date. Lying became second nature. The night it happened, David was at another work dinner, some client thing that would run late. Emma was at my mother-in-law's for a sleepover, something we'd planned weeks ago so David and I could have a date night. Instead, I sat alone in our kitchen, staring at Jake's latest message, want to grab dinner. I know this quiet place. I should have said no. Should have turned off my phone and waited for my husband to come home. Should have fought for my marriage instead of running from it. But I was so tired of being lonely in my own house. So tired of feeling like a ghost in my own. I typed back yes. The restaurant was dim, tucked away in a part of town where I wouldn't run into anyone I knew. Jake had chosen well. He looked different in the soft lighting, more mature, more dangerous. The boyish coffee shop charm was gone, replaced by something intense and focused. I've been thinking about, he said before I'd even sat down. My wedding ring felt heavy. I twisted it around my finger, a nervous habit David used to tease me about back when he paid attention to my nervous habits. This is crazy, I whispered. Maybe, Jake said. But crazy isn't always wrong. We talked for 2 hours. About everything except the obvious. He told me about growing with a single mom, about feeling like he had to prove himself constantly. I told him about the dreams I'd had before I became a wife and mother. About feeling like I was disappearing one day at a time. Or not invisible to me, he said, her reaching across the table to touch my hand. I should have pulled away. Instead, I let him trace circles on my palm with his thumb. When he suggested going back to his apartment, I said yes. I said yes even though my phone was buzzing with texts from David asking when I'd be home. I said yes even though Emma's toothbrush sat in my purse from her overnight bag. I said yes even though I knew exactly what I was choosing to destroy. His apartment was small, neat, filled with books and plants, so different from our suburban house with its family photos and Emma's toys scattered everywhere. Here I wasn't anyone's wife or mother. I was just Sarah. We sat on his couch, suddenly awkward now that we were alone. The heat open sat untouched between us. We don't have to do anything, he said softly. I just wanted to spend time with Bai. But I did want to do something. I wanted to feel wanted, chosen, seen. I wanted to matter to someone who didn't take me for granted. Him first. Everything after that was a blur of guilt and desire and desperate hunger for connection. I forgot about David. I forgot about Emma. I forgot about everything except the feeling of being the center of someone's universe again. For 3 hours, I wasn't the wife who got taken for granted or the mother who cleaned endless messes. I was desired, I was chosen, I was alive. Reality crashed back when my phone rang at midnight. David's ringtone. The one I'd set when we were newlyweds, and hearing from him still made my heart race. I should go, I whispered, scrambling for my clothes. Jake didn't try to stop me, just watched as I put my back on like a costume. Will I see again? He asked as I stood by his door. I should have said no. Should have ended it there, gone home and tried to rebuild what I'd just destroyed. Instead I him one more time. Yes, I whispered against his lips. The drive home was the longest 20 minutes of my. Every red light gave me time to think about what I'd done, what I was becoming. But instead of guilt, all I felt was the lingering taste of Jake's and the promise of more. David was asleep when I slipped into our bed. Exhausted from his long day. Trusting that his wife had spent the evening alone like she'd said she would. I lay awake until dawn, staring at the ceiling, Jake's scent still on my skin. I had no idea that in 3 months I'd lose everything. That Emma would cry herself to sleep asking why Daddy doesn't live with us anymore. That David would look at me like I was a stranger. That my mother-in-law would when I called. That Jake would ghost me the second things got complicated. All I knew was that for the first time in years I felt alive. I had no idea I was already dead. The affair lasted 2 months. 2 months of stolen moments and elaborate lies. 2 months of living 2 completely different lives. I became a master of deception. Running errands meant meeting Jake at a park across town. Book club was code for his apartment. Taking Emma to the playground. Covered afternoon coffee dates where we'd sit in his car and talk for hours. I bought new underwear. Started wearing makeup to the grocery store. Took longer showers humming songs Jake had shown me. David noticed. Seemed different, he said one morning over breakfast, Emma chattering in her high chair between us. Happy. It's nice. The guilt should have eaten me alive. Instead I felt powerful. Like I had a delicious secret that made everything else bearable. David's late nights didn't sting as much when I had Jake's text to look forward to. Emma's tantrums felt manageable when I knew I had an escape. I was an addict, and Jake was my. Leave him. Jake whispered one afternoon, his fingers tangled in my hair. We were in his bed, the afternoon sun making everything golden and perfect. Or miserable there. Emma would be happier with a mom who's actually present. I almost believed him. Almost convinced that destroying my daughter's family was somehow noble. That she'd be better off with divorced parents than with a mother who was slowly disappearing. It's complicated, I said, the same excuse I'd been using for weeks. No, Jake said, pulling me closer. It's simple. Either choose the one or don't. But isn't simple when 4 years old and whole world revolves around mommy and daddy being together. Isn't simple when have a mortgage and bank accounts and extended family who would be destroyed by the truth. Jake didn't understand any of that. At 26 with no kids and no real responsibilities, everything seemed black and white to him. Love or don't love. Stay or go. Choose happiness. I was 32 with a child and a decade of shared history with a man who didn't deserve what I was doing to him. The end came on a Tuesday. Emma had been fussy all morning, clingy and whining about everything. David had left early for another important meeting. I was exhausted and irritated, snapping at my daughter for normal 4-year-old behavior. I want daddy, she wailed when I told her to clean her toys. Well, daddy's at work, I snapped. Her stuck with me, her face crumpled, and I immediately felt terrible. But instead of apologizing and comforting her, I texted Jake, bad morning, need to sleep. His response was immediate, come over, I'll make it better. I shouldn't have. Emma was clearly having an off day, needed her mom's attention and patience. But I was selfish, I was drowning in my own and Jake felt like air. I dropped Emma at daycare early, lying about having a doctor's appointment. She clung to my leg, still upset from our morning battle. Mommy will pick soon, I promised, peeling her little hands away. I should have stayed, should have taken her home and made pancakes and read stories until she felt better. Her should have been the mother she needed instead of the woman I wanted to be. Instead, I drove to Jake's apartment with my heart racing and my conscience screaming. He was waiting with coffee and sympathy, ready to listen to me complain about my ungrateful family and my thankless. Ready to make me feel special and chosen and free. We were in bed by noon. My phone, on silent and my purse on his kitchen counter, buzzed 17 times. I didn't check it until 3 p.m., lost in the fantasy of being someone else entirely. Jake was in the shower humming, and I was planning what lie I'd tell David about my afternoon. 17 missed calls from Emma's daycare. My turn to ice. The voicemail was from Mrs. Patterson, Emma's teacher, her voice tight with controlled panic. Mrs. Williams, Emma fell on the playground and hit her head. She's asking for, we've been trying to reach for an hour. We're taking her to Children's Hospital. Please call us back immediately. The next voicemail was from David. Sarah, where are Emma's? I'm leaving work now. Call me. Then another from the daycare. Mrs. Williams, we still can't reach. Emma has a concussion. Husband is with her but she keeps crying for mommy. Please call us back. David's voice in the fourth message was raw with panic and something else. Suspicion. Sarah, where the are? Our daughter is in the hospital asking for her mother, and are nowhere to be found. When get this, don't bother coming home first. Come straight to Children's Hospital. I dropped the phone. Jake came out of the bathroom, towel around his waist, humming some song. He saw my face and stopped dead. What's wrong, Emma? The word came out like a croak. She's in the hospital. I was throwing on clothes, hands shaking so hard I couldn't button my shirt. Jake tried to help, but I shoved him away. This is my fault. I kept saying, this is my fault. Hey, accidents happen, Jake said, completely missing the point. Kids fall down all the time. I stared at him. This man I'd been ready to leave my family for, this man who'd made me feel so alive and free and special. He had no idea what I was talking about, no clue about the weight of real responsibility. She was upset this morning, I said, my voice hollow. She needed me, and I dropped her off early so I could come here. She was distracted, probably still crying, and that's why she fell. Don't know that. But I did know, deep in my bones. I knew that my daughter had gotten because I'd chosen my affair over her needs. Because I'd been more interested in feeling desired than being present for my child. The drive to the hospital was a nightmare. Traffic everywhere. Every red light feeling like. I called David back but it went straight to voicemail. Called the hospital, got transferred 3 times before someone could tell me Emma was stable but they were running tests. I must have broken every speed limit in the city. David was in the pediatric waiting room when I finally arrived, still in his work clothes, hair disheveled from running his hands through it. He looked when he heard my footsteps, and the expression on his face made me physically recoil. He knew, maybe not the details, maybe not Jake's name, but he knew something was very, very wrong. Where were? His voice was barely controlled. I was. The lie died in my throat. I couldn't say doctor's appointment with Emma sitting 20 feet away in a hospital bed. Hurt couldn't say grocery shopping when my purse was full of receipts from Jake's neighborhood. Couldn't say anything that wouldn't make this worse. Sarah. David stood slowly, like he was afraid of what he might do if he moved too fast. Our daughter was 3 hours ago. 3 hours. Where the have been for 3 hours? Other families were staring. Nurses were pretending not to listen. My whole world was collapsing in a pediatric waiting room that smelled like antiseptic and fear. Can we talk about this at home? I whispered. No. David's voice cracked. We can't, because I don't know who are anymore. The Sarah I married would have answered her phone. The Sarah I married would have been here. He was right. The Sarah he'd married had died somewhere between the first lie and the last. I just hadn't realized I was attending my own funeral. Mummy. Emma's small voice came from behind the curtain. Mommy, is that? I rushed to her bedside, and my heart shattered completely. She had a bandage on her forehead, her hair matted with dried hurt, but her eyes lit when she saw me, like I was everything good in the world. Mommy, I fell down, she said, reaching for me with both arms. My head hurts. I held her against my chest and cried. Not the pretty tears of movies, but the body-shaking sobs of someone who just realized what they'd lost. I'm sorry, I whispered into her hair. I'm so sorry. She didn't understand why I was apologizing. She just held me tighter, trusting and innocent and completely unaware that her mother was a stranger. David watched from the doorway, and when our eyes met across Emma's hospital bed, I saw my marriage in real time. The doctor says she can go home tonight, he said quietly. Mild concussion. We need to wake her every 2 hours to check on her. Okay. I managed. I'll take the first shift. David continued, his voice growing colder with every word. Look tired. I wanted to argue, for the right to take care of my own daughter. But I'd forfeited that right the moment I'd chosen Jake's bed over Emma's needs. We drove home in silence, Emma sleeping in her car seat between us like a tiny referee in a she didn't understand. That night David slept in the guest room. He didn't say why, didn't make a big announcement. Just took his pillow and left me alone in our marriage bed for the first time in 6 years. I lay awake listening to him set alarms every 2 hours to check on our daughter. The daughter I should have been with when she fell. The daughter who'd cried for her mommy while her mommy was busy destroying everything that mattered. My phone buzzed at 2 a.m. A text from Jakey. Hey, okay? Left pretty fast. Want to talk tomorrow? I stared at those words until they blurred. Jake, who had no idea what real consequences looked like. Jake, who thought love was simple and choices were easy. Jake, who would never understand the weight of failing the people who needed most. I deleted his number that night, but the damage was already done. The house of cards I'd built was collapsing, and Emma was going to be buried in the rubble right along with the rest of us. I just didn't know how much worse it was going to get. David found out everything 2 weeks later. Not because I confessed, I'm not that brave. He found out because I was sloppy, and thought I could keep living in 2 worlds forever. The credit card statement arrived on a Thursday. David always handled our finances, but he'd been working late again and asked me to open the mail. I should have thrown it away, should have intercepted it somehow. Instead, I mindlessly sorted through the bills while Emma played with blocks at my feet. When David came home that night, the statement was sitting on the kitchen counter like a loaded, Sarah. His voice was perfectly calm. Can explain this charge to Romano's restaurant. Last month, Tuesday night, my froze Romano's, where Jake and I had gone for our first real date. The night everything changed. The lie wouldn't come. For 2 months, lies had flowed from my mouth like water. Now, when I needed one most, I had nothing. David picked the statement, his hands remarkably steady. $53, for 2 people. On the night I was at the Henderson client dinner, he looked at me. The night said stayed home with Emma. Emma looked from her blocks, sensing the tension. Mommy, why does Daddy sound sad? Go play in room, baby, I whispered. Mommy and Daddy need to talk. She must have heard that tone before, because she gathered her blocks without arguing and disappeared upstairs. Smart girl, smarter than her mother. David waited until he heard her bedroom door close. Then he sat down at our kitchen table. The same table where we'd planned our wedding, where we'd discussed names for Emma, where we'd shared 1,000 ordinary meals as a family. How long? He asked. David, I can explain. How long? The man sitting across from me was a stranger. 6 years of marriage, and I'd never seen this version of David. Cold, focused, terrifyingly calm. 2 months, I whispered. He nodded like he'd already known. Who is he? I couldn't say Jake's name. Couldn't make it real by speaking it in our kitchen, in our home, in front of the refrigerator covered with Emma's drawings. Doesn't matter, I said. It matters to me. Jake. His name came out like a confession. Jake Morrison. He works at the coffee shop. David was quiet for so long I wondered if he'd heard me. Then he laughed, but it wasn't a sound I recognized. It was hollow and bitter and full of something that might have been disbelief. The coffee shop kid. He shook his head. The one mentioned a few times. Said he was sweet, remembered order. Another laugh, sharper this time. I actually thought it was cute. My wife making friends with the locals. The way he said my wife made me flinch. I never meant for it to happen. I started, but David held his hand. Don't. His voice was steel. Don't insult me with that. Made choices, Sarah. Every day for 2 months made choices. Chose to text him. Chose to meet him. Chose to lie to me. Chose to risk our family. Chose him over Emma when she was. That last part hit like a physical. That's not. I didn't. She was in the hospital asking for her mother. And we're with him. David's composure finally cracked, his voice breaking on the last word. Our baby girl was in scared and he couldn't finish. Didn't need to. I ended it, I said desperately. The night Emma got, I realized, I deleted his number. I haven't seen him since. Ended it because got caught. Because there were consequences. David stood, pacing to the window that looked out on our backyard. The swing set he'd built for Emma's 3rd birthday. The garden I'd planted our first spring in this house. If Emma hadn't still be with him right now. He was right. If that afternoon had gone differently, if Emma hadn't fallen, I would have kept living my double indefinitely. I would have kept choosing Jake over my family until, what? Until David found out anyway. Until Emma was old enough to notice mommy's lies. Until I destroyed everything for a man who didn't even understand what real love looked like. I said, the words feeling fragile and useless. I love our family. David turned around and the look on his face made me step backward. No, don't. Love the idea of us. Love the security in the house and having someone to fall back on. But don't love me, Sarah. People who love each other don't do what did. That's not true. Then why? His voice rose for the first time, raw and desperate. Why did do it? Was I that bad of a husband? Was I that terrible? The question I'd been dreading. The one I couldn't answer without sounding like a selfish child. I felt invisible, I said quietly. Worked all the time. I felt like I was disappearing. So decided to destroy our marriage instead of talking to me. Tried to talk to, were always too tired. Too stressed, too busy. So found someone who wasn't. David sank back into his chair, suddenly looking older than his 34 years. Instead of fighting for us, gave. Instead of helping me understand, found someone else. The silence stretched between us like a chasm. Upstairs, Emma was singing to her dolls, oblivious to the fact that her world was ending. What happens now? I asked. David was quiet for a long time. When he finally spoke, his voice was eerily calm. I don't know. I can't look at right now without seeing him. I can't touch without wondering if or comparing me to him. I can't trust anything say. We could try counseling. Think a therapist can fix this. David shook his head. Think talking through feelings is going to make me forget that chose a stranger over own daughter. That lied to my face every day for 2 months. People work through affairs. Marriages survive. Those people didn't leave their kid in the hospital to be with their affair partner. David's voice was quiet but it deeper than shouting. I could maybe forgive cheating on me, Sarah. Maybe, but I will never forgive failing Emma. The truth of it settled over me like ice water. This wasn't just about infidelity. It was about priorities. It was about the kind of person I'd revealed to be when tested. I want to leave. David said suddenly. What? Tonight. I want out of this house tonight. Can't kick me out. This is my home too, is it? David looked around our kitchen, at the photos on the refrigerator, at Emma's school papers stuck to the bulletin board, because it sure didn't feel like it when we're choosing to be somewhere else every chance got. I'm not leaving Emma. Already did. The words were quiet but they hit like a. Every time chose him over her, left her. Every lie told. Every time put her in daycare early so could run to him. Every moment we're physically here but emotionally somewhere else. I've been leaving her for months. I wanted to argue, to scream that he was wrong. But the memory of Emma in that hospital bed, asking for a mother who had been too busy betraying her family to answer the phone, made the words in my throat. Where am I supposed to go? I don't care. David's voice was empty. Kyle's sister. Get a hotel. Go back to boyfriend for all I care. But I want out of this house before Emma wakes tomorrow. Can't keep me from my daughter. I'm not keeping from anything. Did this. Chose this. David stood, suddenly looking exhausted. We'll figure out custody and visitation and all the legal stuff later. Right now I just need gone. I packed a bag while Emma slept, moving through our bedroom like a ghost. David sat in the living room, staring at the wall. Not watching TV, not reading, just sitting in the ruins of our. I tried to pack light, telling this was temporary. That we'd work things out, go to counseling, find a way back to each other. But as I folded clothes that Jake had helped me pick out, as I packed jewelry David had given me for birthdays and anniversaries, I knew the truth. This was over. Not just the marriage, but that I'd built, the family I'd created. The person I used to be. My sister Lisa lived an hour away. She asked no questions when I called crying at 11 p.m., just said she'd leave the porch light on. David didn't say goodbye when I left. Didn't even look from his spot on the couch. I sat in Lisa's guest room that first night, staring at my phone, wanting to call Jake. Wanting someone to tell me this would all work out, that love conquered all, that following my heart had been the right choice. But Jake's number was deleted, and even if it wasn't, what would I say? That leaving him had cost me everything, that the consequences he'd never considered had destroyed my. I never called him. Never saw him again actually. Heard through the grapevine that he'd moved to Portland a few months later. Probably found some other lonely wife to rescue with his poetry and his simple view of love. The divorce took 8 months. David got primary custody because I had no job, no money, and a history of putting my needs before Emma's safety. I got every other weekend and Wednesday evenings, supervised visits at first because David's lawyer painted me as unstable and selfish. He wasn't wrong. Emma cried the first few times I picked her, confused about why mommy didn't live at home anymore. She'd ask when I was coming back, when we could be a family again. I'd make stories about mommy needing her own special place for a while. But kids aren't. She knew something was broken, and she knew it was my fault. The worst part wasn't losing David. It wasn't the divorce or the lawyers or splitting our belongings. It wasn't even the looks from other school parents who'd heard whispers about why the Williams family had imploded. The worst part was watching Emma learn not to trust me. She stopped crying when I dropped her off after visits, stopped asking when I was coming home, started referring to David's house as just, and mine as, Mom's place. Started checking with David before making plans with me, like she wasn't sure I'd follow through. She wasn't wrong to doubt me. I'd already proven that my promises meant nothing. I'm writing this from my studio apartment across town, the kind of place I never imagined living at 32. Emma's asleep in the pull-out bed here for my weekend. She'll be 7 next month, and she's learned to pack her own bag for visits with me. Learned not to get too comfortable in either place. She's smart, resilient, amazing. Everything I used to be before I decided that being wanted was more important than being worthy. David remarried last year. A nice woman named Claire who Emma adores. Who never forgot to answer her phone, who shows to every school play and soccer game. Claire gets to be the mother Emma deserves, while I get to be the cautionary tale. The woman who had everything and a way for a man who never even sent a Christmas card. I think about that night sometimes, the one that started it all. Jake asking if I wanted dinner, me sitting alone in my kitchen with a choice to make. If I could go back, knowing what I know now, would I choose differently? I want to say yes. I want to believe I'd put down the phone, wait for David, for my marriage instead of running from it. But I'm not sure. The woman who said yes to Jake was so hungry for attention, so desperate to feel special, that she might have made the same choice even knowing the cost. That's what haunts me most. Not that I made a mistake, but that I might make it again. That somewhere deep down, I'm still the woman who chose being desired over being deserving. Emma's stirring now, asking for water. In a few minutes, she'll want breakfast, and I'll make her favorite pancakes, and we'll have a nice morning before I drive her back to her real home. Back to the father who never betrayed her trust and the stepmother who's never let her down. I'll smile and wave goodbye like it doesn't me every time, because that's what good mothers do. They put their children first even when it's too late to matter. Especially when it's too late to matter. I used to think the worst thing that could happen was being invisible in my own. Now I know the truth. The worst thing is becoming visible for all the wrong reasons, remembered only for the moment, chose over everyone who needed to choose them. Some mistakes make, others make. This one remade me into someone I don't recognize, someone my own daughter has learned not to rely on, and that's a consequence that lasts forever.